Welcome to the podcast of the Eclectic Traveler. This is the 7th edition. We would have never made it without you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the Macedonians, Brazilians, Mexicans, Italians, Indians, friends in the UK, and special thanks to the people in the United States that listen to this podcast. Sincerely, thank you. How wonderful it is to live in this age of humanity where a simple message like this one could be heard so rapidly around the world.
Que é isso, bicho? Troca essa música aí.
Whoa, what's wrong with the music?
You gotta try something from the hood.
Desculpa, cara, mas sorry. I can't. Not today. Sorry.
Why not?
I'm in the mood for something more like this. You know, we have heard hip-hop songs, dubstep, classical, and I guess we can try something different, you know?
Ah, cara, vai se ferrar.
Well, there's nothing we can do about it.
Antes de você começar, where did you get the leaked conversation you put in the previous podcast?
Now, you can find it anywhere today. I mean, really, YouTube, any website. Now, how I found it, well, I'll use the one word that will help you figure this out. Tor. T-O-R. Use it and find what you need, but be careful, because the deep web could be very dangerous. Anyways, coming back, welcome to the podcast again. I'm desperate to get some good news, commentaries, questions. So let us start by taking some calls from the audience. What do you guys think? And see what other people think. So the first one in line, what's your name and what are your good news?
Mi nombre es Natalia y soy de Chile.
Tell me, what part of Chile are you from?
Soy de la parte norte de Chile.
Pô, velho, você acha que todo mundo fala espanhol? Pede pra ela falar inglês.
Okay, chill. Nachi, do you speak English?
Oh, yeah, I do. Duh. No, because I'm from Chile, it means that I only speak Spanish.
So what can you tell us about your country?
Well, you know, Chile has come from the ashes much faster than other countries in the world. We don't need pasaportes to enter in the US.
You don't need passports? Well, you mean visas, right? Not passports. And you're right. As of February 28th, 2014, Chile entered into the visa waiver program. But it will only start on May the 1st of 2014. How nice is that this country is the only one in Latin America with the present privilege, although Argentina and Brazil have been nominated, and Argentina had this waiver from 1996 to 2002. Anyways, what else?
Oh, sure. We have one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world. We rank in the 52nd place according to the IMF, 47 according to the World Bank, and 53 according to the CIA. Much faster than Russia, Uruguay, Mexico, and
Democratic Republic of Congo?
Any country that's better than the DRC. It's not even funny. The point is that Chile is a whole new level. We are in the free trade scheme with Brunei, New Zealand, Singapore, and soon enough with Peru, Vietnam, Malaysia, Mexico, Canada, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and the United States.
I know, it's a treaty being negotiated. A bunch of developed and underdeveloped countries seeking economic channels, known as the TPP, or Trans-Pacific Partnership. What a great topic. We should probably talk about this. What do you think?
This is going to help us all.
Well, let me just question that. Is it really going to help us all?
You are not qualified to criticize free trade agreements.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I'll propose two things.
¿Cuáles son esas dos cosas?
The two things are, one, we will compare the possible results from the TPP by analyzing its similarities with NAFTA.
Why?
Well, because comparing is the best way to understand the possible consequences of this type of international agreements. Plus, the three countries that are in the NAFTA agreement, Canada, Mexico, and the United States, are negotiating their way into the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Okay, fine. What is the second one?
Well, the second one will be to ask the big guys.
What do you mean?
We will ask scholars about this. I mean, real scholars, well-known professors, book writers, important people. What do you think?
Oh, okay. Sounds fair.
Okay, and for those that are not familiar with NAFTA, because you don't have to be familiar with this treaty.
I know what NAFTA is about.
I know, I'm talking to the audience. If you are not familiar with NAFTA, let me give you a short description. But first, sexy music, please. NAFTA is the 20th-year-old North American Free Trade Agreement. also known among economists as the economic miracle, is the January 1994 agreement between Canada, Mexico, and the United States that created a trilateral trade bloc that intended to eliminate economic borders among these three nations. The TPP, for instance, has the same objective, but with a much bigger scope. According to the Office of the United States Trade Representative, NAFTA has created the world's largest free trade area, which now links 450 million people, producing $17 trillion worth of goods and services.
Are these treaties as wonderful as they seem?
Great question. Let's find out. Let us begin with our interviews. Who is the first scholar?
Our first guest is Hel Weitzman. He is currently the Executive Director of Intellectual Capital at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. Also, former Financial Times reporter. Shut up, let me do it. Also, former Financial Times reporter, whose work appeared in the Los Angeles Times, the Miami Herald, New Statesman, the Irish Times, the Australian and Jane's Foreign Report. Originally from Wales, he was educated at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, Oriel College, Oxford, and Leeds University.
These are his thoughts when I asked him about treaties.
So the way you're talking about it is much too simplistic. I don't think trade in general is a good thing. I mean, we want people to trade together, but treaties are never free. So these treaties that are called free trade agreements, they're never free. There's all sorts of things that are protected in NAFTA and CAFTA. You protect some farmers in the United States, you protect other industries. So there's no such thing as free trade according to treaties. It's a complete nonsense. So these things are not free trade agreements. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that when you introduce these trade agreements, some people benefit and some people lose. So it's hard. You can't say it's beneficial, because if you're the person who loses out, then that's bad. You feel that it's bad. But it depends by what criteria. Does it help the economy to grow? Maybe, yeah, probably. I mean, that's why countries sign them. But in terms of like individual sectors, it can obviously some benefit and some are harmed. So what some economists have argued is that if you have a sector that you know is going to be harmed by a trade agreement, you should give some government aid to that sector in order to kind of ease the transition, if you see what I mean. So that rather than the industry collapsing overnight, you sort of ease it in. But I mean, realistically, what happens is countries put all sorts of barriers in way of free trade. So there is no such thing as free trade, and these trade agreements are usually protect one industry or another. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know the details of trade agreements. It's hard to say in theory whether trade agreements are good or bad until you see them. But as I say, in general, they work to help the economy overall. But there are obviously people who lose jobs and lose their businesses because of trade. But that's the nature of the free market, I guess.
Our second guest is Robert T. Buckman, current communication professor and journalism coordinator at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Now my turn. He has extensive experience in Latin America, including a 2-year civilian assignment with the U.S. Embassy in Paraguay, Army Reserve assignments to Panama, Colombia, and Fulbright Fellowship to Chile. As a freelance journalist for different newspapers, he was converted elections in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Colombia, Venezuela, and Chile. Let me finish it. He is the current author of the book, The World Today series in Latin America, used in major universities here in the U.S. Well, daggone it, let's hear it.
There ain't a hell of a lot. Well, Peru is, even Peru, even Ollanta, he was elected on an anti-U.S. platform, but he's pretty much kept Garcia's policies in place because of trade. They realize that they have a great deal to benefit with free trade agreements with the United States.
Okay. Do you think Mexico benefited quite more for the NAFTA thing, or do you think it was counterproductive?
Well, I know Mexico did. I remember going to Saltillo and Chihuahua in the early 80s, a decade before NAFTA. And I didn't have occasion to go back until the late 90s, and I was astonished at the prosperity that I saw, at least in northern Mexico, in Monterrey, Saltillo, Chihuahua, between 1983 and 1997.
Do you think NAFTA subsequently, let's say, encouraged the fact that campesinos would not be able to compete with subsidized farming, and therefore will more Mexicans travel to the United States? I mean, will migrate to the United States. Do you think that would be a fair price to pay in order to, have this treaty?
Well, our labor unions argue the same thing, that NAFTA has cost jobs in the United States, and these jobs have gone to Mexico. So I think I think it has sort of balanced out, really. There are huge assembly plants in Mexico, and those jobs are held by Mexicans. So I guess you could argue that, sure, if you have this boom in jobs, that there will be fewer Mexicans taking the risk of going to the United States. Now, we still have a lot of migration moving north. I guess they're not all Mexicans. There are Central Americans too.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of Latin Americans coming over.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And they're not just Mexicans.
It was nice, but I guess I'll need more.
Stay tuned for the second part of this podcast. You're listening to The Eclectic Traveler. Don't forget to subscribe, to like it. Thank you.
您正在收听折中主义旅行家的播客。